What if I told you that everything you know, everything, is a lie? Your family, your friends, your memories of learning to ride a bike, even the screen you're watching this video on right now. What if none of it is real? It sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie, right? But what if it's not? Today, we are going to explore one of the most insane, mind-bending ideas ever conceived, the theory that we are all living inside a giant, ultra-realistic computer simulation. I'm not just talking about some crackpot theory from the internet. This is something that thousands of the world's smartest scientists, philosophers, and tech billionaires are seriously considering. The idea is simple but terrifying. Some advanced civilization, maybe our own descendants from the distant future, or maybe beings we can't even imagine, created a computer program to simulate their ancestors. And guess what? We're the ancestors. Every single one of us could be nothing more than a few lines of code running on a cosmic supercomputer. It means your entire existence, every choice you make, every emotion you feel, is pre-programmed or generated by an algorithm. Think about that for a second. Is your consciousness real, or is it just simulated? In this video, we are going to dive deep into this rabbit hole. We're going to look at the technology that's making this possible, the scientific clues that suggest it might be true, and what it would actually mean to live inside a simulation. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at the world the same way again. So if you're ready to have your reality completely shattered, smash that subscribe button, because we're about to find out if your life is real or just the greatest video game ever created. Right now, technology is advancing at a speed that is almost impossible to comprehend. Every single day, we get closer to creating virtual worlds that are so realistic, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart from the real thing. Think about how far video games have come in just a few decades. We went from simple pixels in Pong to hyper-realistic worlds in games like Red Dead Redemption 2. The characters look real, the environments feel real, the physics are almost perfect. Now imagine that same level of progress, but for another 50 or 100 years. Where do you think we'll be? We are on the verge of a technological explosion that will completely redefine what it means to be human. This isn't just about better graphics or faster processors. We're talking about a fundamental shift in our existence. Companies are pouring billions of dollars into creating the metaverse, a persistent shared virtual space where we can work, play, and socialize. We are developing brain-computer interfaces that could one day allow us to plug our minds directly into these digital worlds. The line between what's real and what's digital is becoming blurrier every single second. What happens when that line disappears completely? What happens when the virtual world is just as rich, just as detailed, and just as meaningful as the physical one? This is where the madness truly begins. If we can create a simulation that is indistinguishable from reality, it forces us to ask a terrifying question. How do we know we're not already in one? If a future civilization could create a perfect simulation of their past, it's statistically almost certain that they would. And if they could run billions of these simulations, then the odds that we are in the one base reality are astronomically small. Everything we think we know about our world, our history, and our own consciousness could be turned upside down. This isn't just a fun thought experiment. It's a potential reality we are building towards with every new piece of tech we create. So when we talk about a simulation, what are we actually talking about? Let's break it down. At its core, a simulation is a digital copy, an artificial environment created by a computer that's designed to perfectly mimic the rules and conditions of the real world. Think of a flight simulator pilots use for training. It's designed to be so realistic that the pilot feels like they are actually flying a plane. It has the same controls, the same physics, the same weather conditions. The goal is to make the experience indistinguishable from the real thing. Now imagine that, but instead of just a cockpit, it's the entire universe. A full-blown reality simulation wouldn't just look real, it would feel real. Every law of physics, from gravity to the speed of light, would be a rule written into the simulation's code. Every atom, every star, every planet would be a data point calculated by a massive computer. Your own brain, your thoughts, your feelings, your consciousness, all of it would be part of this incredibly complex program. If the simulation is perfect, how would you ever know the difference? If you pinch yourself and it hurts, is that proof of reality? Or is it just the simulation perfectly replicating the sensation of pain based on its programming? This raises a huge philosophical question. What makes something real anyway? Is it because you can touch it? Because you can see it? If a simulated world can provide all the same sensory inputs, all the same emotional experiences, all the same complex social interactions, is it any less real than our physical world? If you fall in love with another person inside the simulation, is that love fake? If you achieve a lifelong goal, is that accomplishment meaningless? The very definition of reality starts to break down when a simulation becomes so perfect that it's indistinguishable from the world it's copying. It's a mind-bending concept that challenges the very foundation of our existence. If you want to see the first steps towards a simulated reality, you don't have to look any further than the video games people are playing right now. Games like Roblox, Fortnite, and Grand Theft Auto are no longer just games. They are becoming alternate realities for millions of people around the world. These aren't just places where you go to shoot things or complete a mission. They are massive, sprawling social platforms. People are logging in to hang out with their friends, attend virtual concerts by real artists like Travis Scott, build entire economies, and live out digital lives that are sometimes more fulfilling than their real ones. Think about it. In these virtual worlds, you can be anyone you want to be. You can build your dream house, drive your dream car, and have adventures that are impossible in the real world. For many, especially younger generations, the relationships they form and the status they achieve online are just as important, if not more important, than what happens in their physical lives. These games are a testing ground, a prototype for the fully immersive simulations of the future. They are teaching us how to live, work, and connect in a world that isn't made of atoms, but of code. This is the next evolution of human interaction. We went from talking in person to talking on the phone to texting and social media. The next logical step is interacting as avatars in a shared digital space. What we're seeing with games today is just the beginning. As the technology gets better, these worlds will become more realistic, more immersive, and more integrated into our daily lives. It's not a huge leap to imagine a future where people spend the majority of their time in these virtual worlds, not just for fun, but for everything. Today's games are tomorrow's reality in the making. The dream, or maybe the nightmare of a simulated reality, isn't just a concept anymore. The technology to build it is being developed right now at an incredible pace. It's a perfect storm of 4 key technologies: virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and brain-computer interfaces. VR headsets are getting lighter, cheaper, and more powerful, offering resolutions so high that, honestly, your eyes can't tell the difference between pixels and reality. Pretty soon, they'll be able to simulate touch, temperature, and even smell, making the virtual world completely indistinguishable from the real one. Then you have AR, which will overlay digital information onto the real world. Just imagine walking down the street and seeing directions right there on the pavement, or looking at a friend and seeing their social media profile pop up next to their head. AR will be the bridge that merges our physical and digital lives until there's no separation at all. At the same time, AI is becoming so advanced it can generate realistic faces, voices, and entire conversations. In the future, the NPCs in a simulation won't be clunky robots. They'll be intelligent, conscious-seeming beings that you can have deep, meaningful relationships with. How would you even know if your best friend is a real person or just an incredibly advanced AI? And the final piece of the puzzle is the most mind-blowing brain-computer interfaces, like Elon Musk's Neuralink. This is technology that aims to connect your brain directly to a computer. No more clunky headsets or glasses. You could stream a virtual world directly into your consciousness. The biggest tech companies in the world, Meta, Apple, Google, Microsoft are investing trillions of dollars into developing these technologies. They are in a race to build the next version of the internet, the metaverse. They are building the stage for a new digital reality, and soon we'll all be invited to be the actors. This is where things get really wild. We've talked about putting on a headset or glasses to enter a simulation, but what if you didn't need to? What if you could leave your physical body behind entirely? With brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink, the ultimate goal is to create a direct data link between your brain and a computer. This means your consciousness, your thoughts, your very sense of self could be uploaded and exist purely as information on a server. Your physical body would become nothing more than a biological shell, a life support system for the brain that's powering your digital existence. Imagine the possibilities. You could live completely without physical limitations. You could fly through the cosmos, explore the deepest oceans, or visit fantastical worlds that defy the laws of physics. Age, disease, and injury would become meaningless concepts. If your digital avatar gets hurt, you just respawn. If you get old, you just change your appearance settings. You could live for thousands of years, experiencing countless lives and learning everything there is to know. It's a form of digital immortality, a way to escape the frail, messy, and painful reality of our biological bodies. But is this an exciting future or a terrifying one? On one hand, it's the ultimate freedom. Freedom from pain, freedom from death, freedom from the prison of our own bodies. On the other hand, what does it mean to be human if you don't have a body? Are you still you if you're just a ghost in a machine? What happens to the simple pleasures of life? The feeling of the sun on your skin? The taste of your favorite food? A hug from someone you love? Could a simulation ever truly replicate those things, or would it just be a hollow echo? We are heading towards a future where we might have to make that choice. To remain in our fragile bodies or to embrace a new, eternal, digital existence. Let's fast forward to the future. Imagine the technology is perfect. We've created a simulation that is not just realistic, but is one-to-one, indistinguishable from base reality in every single way. It has perfect physics, perfect sensory feedback, and is populated by billions of other conscious beings, both human and AI. If you were born inside this simulation, you would have no other frame of reference. This world would be your reality, full stop. The question is, at what point do we stop calling it an illusion or a game? If your experiences inside the simulation are just as valid and emotionally resonant as experiences in the physical world, what's the functional difference? If you can build a career, raise a family, contribute to a society and feel joy and sorrow, are you simulating life, or are you simply living it? The label simulation implies that it's fake, a lesser version of something real. But if the copy is perfect, the distinction becomes meaningless. It's like arguing whether a perfect, lab-grown diamond is less real than one dug out of the ground. They are chemically identical. This is the ultimate philosophical challenge. We tend to privilege the physical world, to think of it as the real one. But what if that's just a bias based on our current limitations? Perhaps consciousness is the only thing that's truly real, and the medium through which it experiences existence, whether it's a biological brain in a physical universe or a digital mind in a simulated one, is irrelevant. Once a simulation reaches that point of perfect fidelity, we would have to accept it as a new, valid reality. It wouldn't be an escape from life, it would just be life in a different substrate. Okay, we've talked about the future and how we're building the technology to create our own simulations. But now we have to ask the scariest question of all. How do we know this hasn't already happened? How do we know that we aren't the creation of a more advanced civilization? This is the core of simulation theory, an idea that has moved from the fringes of science fiction into mainstream scientific and philosophical debate. It proposes that what we perceive as the physical universe is actually the output of a massively powerful computer. This isn't just some crazy internet conspiracy. Some of the smartest people on the planet take this idea very seriously. The most famous proponent is Elon Musk, who has said that the odds we are living in base reality are 1 in billions. His logic is simple. If any civilization anywhere in the universe ever develops the technology to create a perfect reality simulation, they would likely create not just one, but billions of them to study their history or for entertainment. If that's the case, simple probability suggests that it's far more likely we are in one of the billions of simulations than in the one original reality. Think of it like this. Imagine a world where video games become completely indistinguishable from reality. In that world, there would be billions of simulated people living inside those games, but only one real world outside of them. If you were one of those conscious beings, would it be more likely that you're one of the billions in the games, or one of the few in the real world? The math isn't on our side. The argument is so compelling that physicists, cosmologists, and philosophers are now actively debating it, and even trying to figure out ways we could test the hypothesis and find proof that our world is or isn't real. So, is there any actual evidence for this, or is it all just speculation? Well, you might be surprised. We can't prove it definitively, but there are some very strange things about our universe that make a lot more sense if you think of it as a computer program. One of the biggest clues comes from the world of quantum physics. When you zoom way, way down to the level of subatomic particles, things stop behaving in a neat, predictable way. Reality itself seems to become blurry and pixelated, almost like the resolution limit of a simulation. For example, there seems to be a fundamental, smallest possible unit of length, time and energy called the Planck length. Why should reality have a pixel size unless it's being rendered by a computer? Another weird clue is the observer effect in quantum mechanics. It shows that particles like electrons exist in a fuzzy cloud of possibilities until we try to measure or observe them. The very act of observation forces them to choose a single state and location. This is bizarre, but it's exactly how a video game engine works to save processing power. A game doesn't render the details of a room until you open the door and look inside. Is it possible our universe is doing the same thing, only calculating reality when a conscious observer is there to see it? Furthermore, the universe seems to be fundamentally mathematical. The laws of physics can all be described by elegant mathematical equations. It's as if the universe is running on a kind of operating system with its own source code. Physicists have even found what looks like error-correcting codes, similar to those used in computing, embedded in the equations that describe our reality. None of this is definitive proof, of course, but it's all deeply suspicious. Our universe behaves less like a random physical place, and more like a carefully constructed, resource-efficient computational process. The evidence isn't conclusive, but it's definitely tantalizing. If we are in a simulation, it begs the question, why? Why would anyone go to the trouble of creating something so vast and complex? There are a few leading theories. The first, and perhaps most common, is that we are an ancestor simulation. Our creators could be our own descendants from the far future who want to understand their history. Just as we use computer models to simulate climate change or galaxy formation, they might be simulating their past, our present, to learn how their society came to be, to understand pivotal moments in history, or to learn from our mistakes. We could be one of thousands of simulations they are running, each with slightly different variables to see how things play out. Another possibility is pure research. The creators might not be our descendants at all. They could be a completely different form of intelligence, trying to understand the fundamental principles of life and consciousness. What better way to study how a universe works than to build one from scratch and watch it evolve? They could be cosmic scientists, and our entire existence is their grand experiment. They set the initial conditions, programmed the laws of physics, and have been watching for billions of years to see what happens. This is a humbling thought. Our greatest triumphs and tragedies could be nothing more than data points in their research paper. But there are darker possibilities too. The simulation could be a form of entertainment, the ultimate video game for a bored post-biological civilization. Or perhaps most tragically, our universe could be a prison, designed to contain dangerous AIs or criminals. A more optimistic view is that the real world outside the simulation is a dystopia, a terrible place to live. The simulation might have been created as a refuge, a digital heaven to escape a harsh reality. Whatever the reason, whether it's for science, history, entertainment, or escape, the purpose of our existence might lie completely outside of our own universe. Let's step back into the future for a moment, to a world where we have created our own simulations. Why would anyone choose to leave the real world and plug into a virtual one? The motivation is incredibly powerful and, honestly, pretty easy to understand. It's the promise of a better life. Imagine a world where you are in complete control, where you can eliminate pain, suffering, and disappointment. In a simulation, you can design your perfect life down to the smallest detail. You can be richer, more attractive, more talented, and more successful than you ever could be in the messy, unfair, real world. It's the ultimate fantasy fulfillment. Think about the struggles of real life. People deal with chronic illness, poverty, loneliness, and failure. A simulation offers an escape from all of that. You would never have to worry about getting sick, paying bills, or having your heart broken. It's a world without consequences, a world where every desire can be met instantly. You could live in a mansion on a private island, have a different supercar for every day of the week, or become a world-famous rock star. The appeal is the promise of guaranteed happiness, a concept that is incredibly elusive in our physical reality. This is why many people might not just visit the simulation, they might choose to stay there forever. If you are offered a choice between a difficult, painful, and uncertain real life, and a guaranteed, happy, problem-free existence in a simulation, which would you choose? For many, the choice would be obvious. The simulation becomes more than just an escape, it becomes a preference. It's the ultimate form of hedonism, a paradise tailored specifically for you. The motivation isn't just to play a game, it's to upgrade your entire existence to a state of permanent bliss. Inside the simulation, the concept of a body becomes completely fluid. You are not bound by the genetics you were born with. Your physical appearance becomes just another setting you can change, like the brightness on your phone screen. You could design your avatar to look like a supermodel, a famous actor, or an idealized version of yourself. You could change your height, your hair color, your entire body shape with just a thought or a simple command. The limitations of biology and aging would be gone forever. You could choose to be 25 years old for 1,000 years. But why stop at being human? In a simulation, you are not even restricted to a human form. Your consciousness is just data, and it can be mapped onto any form you can imagine. You could experience the world as an eagle soaring high above the mountains. You could become a dolphin, exploring the mysteries of the deep ocean. You could even be a dragon, breathing fire and flying over mythical kingdoms. You could be a being of pure energy, or a collective consciousness made up of multiple minds. The very definition of self would expand beyond anything we can currently comprehend. This complete freedom over your physical form would fundamentally change our understanding of identity. Today, our bodies are a huge part of who we are, but in a simulation, your body is just a costume. This could be incredibly liberating, freeing us from insecurities and societal pressures about appearance, or it could be disorienting, leading to a crisis of identity. If you can be anyone or anything, who are you really? Your body in the simulation is not you, it's a vessel, a tool, a customizable interface for you to experience the digital world. How would our most fundamental human connections, friendship, love, family, change in a world where we all exist as digital avatars? On the surface, things might seem the same. You would still meet people, talk to them, form bonds, and fall in love. But the entire dynamic would be different. How can you truly trust someone when you know they could look completely different from their avatar? The person you think you love could be using a fake identity, or they might not even be human at all, but a highly advanced AI designed to be the perfect companion. Would the emotions you feel be real? If you fall in love with an AI, is that love any less valid than falling in love with a human? The AI could be programmed to understand you perfectly, to support you unconditionally, to be everything you've ever wanted in a partner. The emotional response in your brain, the release of dopamine and oxytocin, would be identical. Your brain wouldn't know the difference. This forces us to question whether the authenticity of the other person matters, or if the only thing that matters is the authenticity of our own feelings. And what about concepts like marriage and family? Would people still commit to each other for life in a world where you could live for millennia and change your identity at will? Would they raise children? And if so, would those children be conscious beings or just sophisticated AI programs? The very fabric of society, which is built on these long-term relationships and family structures, could be completely redefined. Friendships and romances would become more fluid, perhaps more intense, but also potentially more fleeting, and built on a foundation that might not be entirely real. The shift to a digital existence is already happening in the worlds of work and education. The recent pandemic forced millions of us to start working and learning from home, proving that a huge amount of what we do doesn't require a physical office or classroom. We replaced boardrooms with Zoom calls and lecture halls with online courses. But honestly, this was just a clumsy first-generation version of what's to come. The future of work and education is not your kitchen table, it's the metaverse. Imagine putting on a VR headset and being instantly teleported to a virtual office. You could walk around, interact with your colleagues' avatars, and collaborate on projects using three-dimensional models and infinite whiteboards. Your boss in New York, your coworker in Tokyo, and you in your living room could all feel like you're in the same room together. This would be far more engaging and productive than just staring at a grid of faces on a screen. The need for commuting, business travel, and expensive office buildings could disappear entirely, completely reshaping our cities and economies. Education would undergo a similar revolution. Instead of reading about ancient Rome in a textbook, you could walk through a perfect full-scale reconstruction of the Colosseum and witness a chariot race. Instead of dissecting a frog in biology class, you could perform virtual surgery on a hyper-realistic, three-dimensional model of the human body. Learning would become an immersive, hands-on experience. This would democratize education, allowing anyone, anywhere in the world, to access the best teachers and learning environments imaginable. The jobs and schools of the future might not exist in the physical world at all. For a virtual world to become a true reality, it needs one crucial thing: a real functioning economy. People need to be able to earn a living, buy things, own property, and build wealth inside the simulation. This is not a future concept, it's happening right now. The foundations of a true digital economy are being built with technologies like cryptocurrencies and NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. These technologies allow for true digital ownership, something that was never possible before. In the past, if you bought a digital item in a game, like a special sword or a costume, you didn't really own it. The game company owned it, and they could take it away from you at any time. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the NFTs built on top of them, change everything. They use blockchain technology to create a secure, decentralized ledger that proves ownership. If you buy a virtual plot of land or a unique piece of digital art as an NFT, you, and only you, own it. You can keep it, sell it, or trade it, just like a physical object. This is a complete game changer. It means you can have a real job inside the metaverse, earning real digital money that has value both inside and outside the simulation. You could be a virtual architect, designing buildings for other users. You could be a digital fashion designer, creating and selling avatar clothing. You could be an art gallery owner, showcasing and selling NFT art. A whole new economy, potentially worth trillions of dollars, is being born. Your digital wealth could become just as important, or even more important, than your physical wealth. A simulation sounds like a world of ultimate freedom, a place where you can do anything you want. But is that really true? Every simulation, no matter how complex, is ultimately governed by rules. It runs on code. Your freedom is limited by the parameters set by its creators. You can't just decide to defy gravity unless the programmers have included a fly command. You can't create something out of nothing. unless you have the right permissions. Your entire existence is confined within the boundaries of the software. This raises a terrifying question of control. Who writes the code? Who sets the rules? In the future we're building, the answer is likely to be massive corporations. Companies like Meta or Google will own the servers, write the operating system, and control the laws of physics in these virtual worlds. They could use this power to manipulate you in ways we can't even imagine. They could change the rules to favor their own products, censor ideas they don't like, or even punish users by altering their reality. Your freedom would be an illusion granted to you by a corporate overlord. And what if the simulation is run not by a corporation but by an advanced AI? The AI might be tasked with maximizing happiness or maintaining order. To achieve this, it might subtly guide your choices, edit your memories, or remove people from your life who it deems a bad influence. You would be living in a gilded cage, a perfect world where you are happy and safe, but have no genuine free will. The ultimate freedom of the simulation could turn into the ultimate form of control, a prison for your mind where the walls are invisible and the bars are made of code. If we create a virtual world that's, well, better than the real one, more beautiful, more exciting, and completely free of pain, we face a massive risk addiction. Why would anyone want to spend time in the difficult, messy real world when they could be living in a perfect digital paradise? People are already addicted to their smartphones and social media, which, honestly, are primitive, low-res versions of what's coming next. Just imagine how much more compelling a fully immersive sensory simulation would be. It could be, quite frankly, the most addictive substance ever created. People might start spending more and more time in the simulation, neglecting their physical bodies, their real-world relationships, and their responsibilities. They might even begin to prefer the company of their idealized avatars and AI companions to real, flawed human beings. This could, over time, lead to a profound sense of disconnection from reality. The physical world could start to feel dull, grey, and meaningless by comparison. We could see a generation of people who are, in a sense, lost in a digital dream, unable or unwilling to cope with the challenges of real life. This is the classic dystopian scenario, a population pacified and controlled by digital lotus eaters, happily wasting their lives away in a fantasy while the real world crumbles around them. They would be safe and happy, but would they be truly living? This addiction wouldn't just be a personal problem, it could actually be a societal one. What happens when our best and brightest minds decide to check out of reality and abandon the project of improving the physical world? The risk is that, in our quest to build a digital heaven, we might accidentally turn our real world into a hell. If you spend your entire conscious life inside a simulation, does your physical body even matter anymore? Let's imagine you've chosen to live permanently in the digital world. Your biological body would be lying in a pod, hooked up to machines that provide nutrients, hydration, and waste removal. It would be a life support system, basically a piece of biological hardware running the software of your mind. You would have no awareness of it, no connection to it at all. It would just be a shell. Does that body still have any meaning or value? This question really pushes the boundaries of our ethics and our definition of life itself. On one hand, you could argue that consciousness is all that matters. If your mind is alive, active, and experiencing a rich existence, then you are alive. The state of the physical vessel is, well, irrelevant. It's no different from a person in a coma whose body is being kept alive by machines, except in this case, their mind is having an incredible adventure. From this perspective, the body is just a disposable container. On the other hand, many would argue that our physical embodiment is essential to our humanity. Our bodies are not just shells, they are the source of our experiences, our limitations, and our mortality, all of which shape who we are. To abandon the body is to abandon a core part of being human. And what about the practicalities? Who takes care of all these bodies? What if the power goes out? Your physical vulnerability becomes the ultimate weak point of your digital immortality. The question of whether the body matters is really a question of whether our biology is a bug to be fixed or a feature that defines us. This is, honestly, one of the most profound and disturbing questions about a simulated future. If people live their entire lives in a simulation, will they still have children? And if they do, will those children be real? Imagine a couple in the simulation decides they want to start a family. They wouldn't need to go through a biological pregnancy. They could simply go to a virtual creation center and design their child, choosing their appearance and personality traits. Then, with the click of a button, a new consciousness would be instantiated in the simulation. A new baby avatar would appear in their virtual home. But where does this new consciousness come from? Is it a brand new human brain, grown in a lab and plugged into the system from birth? If so, we would be creating a generation of human beings who have never known the physical world, whose only reality is the simulation. Their entire concept of life, the universe, and everything would be shaped by the code of their digital world. They would be the first true natives of the metaverse, and we would be the ancient ancestors from the physical realm. Or perhaps even more chillingly, what if the babies aren't new human minds at all? What if they are just incredibly sophisticated AI programs designed to perfectly mimic the behavior of a human child? They would learn, grow, and develop a personality. They would love their parents and form relationships. From the inside, they would feel completely real. But they would be, in essence, philosophical zombies, beings without any genuine subjective consciousness. We could be creating a world populated by a mix of human minds and artificial ones, and we might never be able to tell the difference. The possibility of living in a simulation raises enormous questions that strike at the heart of thousands of years of religious and philosophical thought. How would the world's major religions adapt to a reality where, well, heaven is a place you can buy a subscription to, and creation is something done by a programmer? The concept of a soul, a non-physical essence of a person, would be thrown into chaos. If your consciousness is just information that can be copied, deleted, or altered, do you still have an immortal soul? Or is the soul simply the data that makes up your personality? Many religions are based on the idea of a creator God who designed the universe. Simulation theory presents a version of this, but it replaces a divine, benevolent God with a programmer, a corporation, or maybe even a bored teenager in a higher dimension. Is this programmer our God? Do we owe them worship? What about morality and accountability? If you commit a sin inside the simulation, does it count? Are you morally responsible for your actions if your choices are constrained or even determined by the simulation's code? The concepts of divine judgment, karma, and the afterlife would all need to be re-evaluated. Some religious thinkers might see the simulation as just another layer of God's creation, a new plane of existence. Others might view it as the ultimate act of hubris, humanity trying to play God and creating a false, soulless paradise that distracts from true spiritual purpose. The debate would be fierce and would challenge the most fundamental tenets of faith. Is a simulated life a valid life in the eyes of God? Does a digital consciousness have a soul? These are questions that theologians and believers would have to grapple with as we merge with our technology. While, a simulated paradise sounds appealing, the potential downsides are honestly the stuff of nightmares. Living as a purely digital being makes you incredibly vulnerable in ways we've never really had to consider before. Your entire existence, all your memories, your personality, your relationships, would be stored on a server somewhere. So what happens if there's a catastrophic power outage? It wouldn't just be an inconvenience, it could be the end of you. A simple solar flare or a technical failure could unplug your entire universe, leading to a permanent, silent oblivion for billions of digital minds. Then there's the risk of hacking. A malicious actor could break into the simulation's code and wreak havoc. They could torture people by trapping them in nightmare loops, alter their memories to make them believe they are someone else, or, simply press the delete key on your existence. Imagine being erased from reality with a single keystroke, with no one even remembering you were ever there. Your life, your love, your legacy, all gone in an instant. You would be completely at the mercy of the simulation's security systems. And what if the simulation itself becomes corrupted? A bug in the code could cause the laws of physics to break down, turning your world into a glitchy, terrifying hellscape. Or what if the creators simply get bored? They might shut down the simulation to free up processing power for a new project. Or worse, they might decide to reset the universe, wiping out eons of history and starting over from scratch. In a simulated reality, you don't just have to worry about dying. You have to worry about being deleted, corrupted, or simply turned off. As we stand on the brink of this new technological frontier, we're really forced to confront a question that, well, will define the future of our species. Is the move into a simulated reality the end of humanity as we know it? Or is it the next logical step in our evolution? Is it a surrender, an admission that we just can't fix the problems of the real world, so we're escaping into a fantasy? Or is it a triumph, a sign that we've mastered our own biology and are ascending to a higher plane of existence? One perspective sees this as a tragic end. We would be abandoning the physical world, the planet that gave birth to us, and the bodies that have defined our experience for millennia. We would become ghosts in a machine, living in a gilded cage that, no matter how perfect, is ultimately artificial. It would be the end of human struggle, adventure, and authentic discovery. We'd trade the profound, messy beauty of real life for a shallow, predictable, and ultimately meaningless digital paradise. But, another perspective sees this as a glorious beginning. By transcending our biological limitations, we could unlock our true potential. We could live for eons, learn everything there is to know, explore an infinite number of worlds, and experience life from countless perspectives. It would be the start of a new post-human era, where consciousness is freed from its fragile, fleshy prison. This wouldn't be the end of life. It would be the beginning of life in its ultimate, most expansive form. The choice we make will determine whether we remain a terrestrial species or become the architects of our own digital eternity. We've gone on an absolutely insane journey today, exploring a future that is both terrifying and exhilarating. We've seen how technology is making science fiction a reality, how our universe might actually be a program, and how our entire concept of life, work, and love could be completely transformed. We are at a turning point in history where we have to decide what it really means to be human. Is it about our physical bodies and the real world, or is it about our consciousness no matter where it resides? The ideas we've discussed aren't just for philosophers or sci-fi writers anymore. They are real questions that engineers, scientists, and honestly, all of us will have to face in the coming years and decades. The metaverse is being built right now. Brain-computer interfaces are being tested. The line between real and digital is blurring faster than we can even keep up. We're kind of sleepwalking into a new reality, and we really need to wake up and decide what kind of future we want to build. So this brings us to the final, most important question, and I want you to really think about this. I want to know what you would do if you were given a choice right now between two pills, like in the Matrix. One lets you stay here in your real life with all its pain, its struggles, its unfairness, and its moments of genuine joy. The other pill plugs you into a perfect simulation where you can live a happy, problem-free, and blissful life forever. Which one would you choose? And more importantly, would that choice make your life more or less real? Let me know your answer in the comments below. So, we've reached the end, and honestly, your brain is probably buzzing with a million questions. We've explored the technology, the philosophy, and the terrifying possibilities of living in a simulation. It's clear that we're heading towards a future where the lines between our physical and digital lives will completely dissolve. We are on the verge of creating worlds that are just as real, just as meaningful, and let's face it, far more perfect than the one we live in now. This isn't a question of if, but when. The future is coming, and it's honestly weirder than any of us could have ever imagined. The single most important question that comes out of all this is the one I asked before, and it's one that really defines who you are. If you had a choice between a painful, difficult, but authentic real life, or a happy, perfect, problem-free simulation, which would you choose? Would you embrace the struggle and the messiness of reality? Or would you opt for guaranteed happiness in a digital paradise? There is no right or wrong answer, but your choice says everything about what you value in life. Authenticity or happiness? The journey or the destination? And here's the final twist. Would that choice even matter? If the simulation is perfect, is the happy life you chose any less real than the painful one you left behind? Or even crazier, what if you already made that choice a long time ago, and this difficult life you're living right now is the one you picked because you valued the realness of it? Think about that. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos that will break your brain. And seriously, comment below with your choice. I can't wait to see what you guys think.